What's up, guys? Got my members only jacket on, got my Pac Man hat on. I am iced in. We've got 2 inches of ice and counting because it's not snowing, it's raining ice outside. And you can hear the trucks every now and then coming by. So I figured, do a little video since I'm trapped in here and started digging through some stuff. And, you know, when I've talked about comics and how I got started when I was a kid and all this stuff, I always lay out this heavy stuff, that I was, watching Wizards and Ralph Bakshi cartoons and Johnny Quest and reading heavy metal and Silver Age books, Bronze Age books, Gerber, Conan, all that stuff. But there was a lighter side to it, you know. And I kind of was looking through my stuff, and this is the stuff that apparently was my favorite because I've collected it, even though I've got a lot of great memories of it. And we're talking about the Sunday Funnies and these TV specials based on the Sunday Funnies and stuff. Yes, they were in daily strips in the newspaper every day, but on Sunday was the day where you got to spread open that paper, and it was this glorious color, after the black and white and all this stuff, and it was once a week. And the strips were longer than they were during the week, and I started picking up that there was actually a continuity to some of these comics. If you read the strips every day, sometimes they paid off on a Sunday. In my house, we didn't get a paper. We just didn't. What would happen is on Sundays, we'd all pile up in the car and we would take a 30-minute drive up, way out in the mountains into the woods to go see my stepdad's parents, to be my sister. And around the time we turned 6, my brother ended up leaving with them. Uh, my brother and sister were the stepdad's kids, and I was the other one, So we'd go up there, and man, when you're that little and that young, a 30-minute drive on a backcountry road feels like it takes forever. There's times you hated it. Not going up there because it was way out in the country, up in the mountains and stuff. And when you got up there wasn't a lot to do and stuff. But you get dinner, you get lunch, whatever. It'd be the big Sunday meal. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes. Miss those mashed potatoes. Just really good home cooking food made by grandma, man. And when you got there, she was still cooking, and it was a four at the time. It was a 4-room house, and they actually had an outhouse in the back. They got a real bathroom. They did an addition and all this stuff, and an attic. And you couldn't go in the attic because that's where the stepdad and his brother, lived up there and stuff, and they never threw away anything. So it was just a plethora of old stuff from probably the 50s until all up to like the early 80s of stuff just packed in there, but you couldn't go through it. And they had a case, a glass case. I never saw anything like this. And at the time, it was vintage toys from the late 60s and early 70s and stuff because my stepdad's brother had died of leukemia around 77, 76. So they took his favorite toys and they made a display of them, but you could never play with them, which is understandable. But when you're a kid, that's hard. So you get there, they would have the paper. Grandma would get her old Inquirers and stuff, all her, smut magazines from the grocery store, you know what I'm saying? And you have all that stuff, and then the Sunday paper was there. Everybody would take their turn with it, but you always went for the Sunday Funnies. Everybody wanted to read them, but the grown-ups didn't want to act like they would, so it was getting passed around, there'd be some chuckling and stuff going on, and it was great. And the stuff that I remember, it always started out with Peanuts first thing. I was a big Charlie Brown nut. And then, you'd have High and Lois, Blondie. I think Blondie was the second biggest one. And then you had stuff in there like Al Cap, Prince Valiant, the Phantom. Those were the two sophisticated ones in my eyes. The art was just superb in them. The older stuff, BC. I loved BC, Johnny Hart and those guys. You have BC, you have Wizard of Id, just great stuff. And over the years, they started changing and stuff. New things were coming in, and I didn't realize that these were syndicated, even though the company had syndicated in their word, King Features syndications and stuff, and a few other ones. So I thought this was it. I didn't know there was other strips out there. And then as time went by and got older, they started putting in Bloom County. They started putting in Calvin and Hobbes. Peanuts was always a staple. Blondie was always a staple. You had your big ones, and thank God they still had BC. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I have that kind of like formed, that whole mindset of, collecting and cartooning as an art and stuff, and storylines and stuff. One of the first things I'm seeing, I should save this to the end, but the big one for me was I called it Charlie Brown. It wasn't Peanuts to me. It was Charlie Brown, and even Charles Schultz didn't like the title because he didn't pick it out. Somebody else named it that, man. But it was good old Charlie Brown. And when I was like 4 and 5, I watched every TV special that came on. I could be playing outside, and I would just have an epiphany like, "There's a Charlie Brown special on tonight," and you'd go home and you check like a little TV guide of a paper or something like that in the store around the corner, and surely it is, CBS 8 o'clock, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, Linus, Peppermint Patty, Lucy, all of them, Woodstock, just all of them, man. Just the king. That's more or less to me started it all. It started in the '50s. We all should know Charlie Brown, whether you know the history or not. But Charles Schultz was the guy that he touched on everything. Apparently, I don't know how these artists would meet or anything, but I've heard Chris Brown of that did who inherited Hagar the Horrible from his dad and stuff like that. He worked on the strip and everything like that. I've heard Jim Davis of Garfield, a bunch of people, anybody and every, for better and worse, everybody. Apparently, they all met Charles Schultz, and sometimes he would touch their work. They talk about how great he was and everything. Garfield's feet got bigger because Charles Schultz would be like, well, make his feet bigger and it'll make him look more grounded. He would tell people to draw what you love and stuff like that. So as a little kid, man, I would have all kinds of Charlie Brown stuff. I had a trade paperback, I guess is what you called then, soft cover before all the buzzwords, and we had a title for all this stuff. And we knocked these are hardbacks, but they would I would sit there and just draw Charlie Brown all the time. I mean, I would emulate. I was like 4 or 5, 6 years old. I mean, it went on for years of me just drawing Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and I got to where I could do it by memory. And it was amazing because like there would be like these little art contests in school, and we would go to some kind of function in town at the local armory, and I don't know if it was like safety day. I don't know what they were. It might have been farmers markets. I don't know. But I'd be there with my Charlie Brown and my little sketchbook and my crayons, and I would be drawing Charlie Brown, and they'd have an art contest. And I would either do these great big huge, just a picture of Charlie Brown standing on the mound with his hat and all this stuff. Uh, and or they would want something else, and I would just hurry up and get some paints, and I'd draw a house with a butterfly and a big sun, and my mom would be amazed, like, he won. I would win a little art contest, and it's because I was either drawing Charles Schultz or I wanted to hurry up and get this over with so I can get back to my Charlie Brown. Just as a kid, it was awesome, man. So I pick these up when I see them. I would give anything to have that old soft cover Charlie Brown collection I had back then, but who knows. And we always had like these little Reader's Digest in the house. Okay, that's where a lot of my reading on the side came from. Man, we would have all these little old '70s paperbacks that would reprint a whole bunch of strips and of Charlie Brown. And I noticed how Charles Schultz's art style would change over the years. So I actually got to know. I could tell these came before what was in the strips and everything. I mean, I was studying them and didn't even know I was studying them, man. I loved it so much didn't feel like work. And to this day, excuse me while I turn my back. To this day, let me situate these better. Oh. And to this day, I still, I'll hit a spot where I want to watch these cartoons and stuff. I was one of those people that was devastated when it was over. Excuse me, I got an '80s members only jacket on. You have to keep the sleeves pulled up. So whenever these come out, I find them pretty cheap on DVD and everything. And I have not celebrated Christmas in a couple years, 3 or 4 years or something. Yet it never truly feels like Christmas until I watch the Charlie Brown Christmas special. Okay, to me that's the staple. And then it has to be followed up with the Grinch. And then now we got a Christmas Story where hopefully we won't shoot our eye out. But yeah, I mean these were just just Charlie Brown was just everywhere for me, man. I mean even though I got older, man, it was He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Charlie Brown. And I'm still not comfortable calling them Peanuts, even though that's what it is and stuff. So yeah, all this stuff. So yeah, and but like I said, a lot of my first exposure were these little paperbacks that my stepdad and uncle and all them would have. Man, we had Croc, Al Cap. Um, oh my God, I can't be going. BC, I absolutely loved BC. BC, I don't know what it was, but I just loved that cave. Since I was a kid, I've loved the caveman stuff and the Bigfoot stuff. Even though I know Bigfoot's not real and stuff, but BC was just spectacular. Wizard of Id cracked me up. The second guy I want to talk about was from Mad Magazine, and as you know, as I got older and learned more about this guy in the '90s and stuff, you know, the background and stuff, you know, I just knew him through his work, and it was just fascinating. I never he had his own art style. I've never really seen anybody except Monty Python do what he does. I actually consider him pre Monty Python because I personally think he's the guy that either introduced black humor, uh, black comedy, dark humor, whatever you want to call it, or he's the one that brought it to the limelight, and that stood out. And he worked for Mad Magazine for decades until in the '80s he went to Crack Magazine. He went to Crack Magazine because he found out he did the math and found out that due to these reprints, some of the ones I'm going to show you and some other stuff, and these collections that were coming out, he probably lost over $1 million. So he went to Crack, and he was called Mad's Maddest Artist. But I remember when he went to Crack Magazine, which just blew my mind, they referred to him as Crack's most cracked, you know, Crack's most cracked artist, Don Martin. Okay, and you know, I would read the Mad magazines that were around the house. I've got a bunch upstairs that are older and stuff, but it was these trades like this, these little, uh, you know, books like this, where you really, I mean, you really got it, man. And I've seen some of his stuff animated here and there and stuff, but the way he drew feet, you know, it's everything, all the, you know, it was exaggerated and everything. It's like they were made out of hinges. And I kind of cracked up because when he did Bone, he's got a character named Phone Bone. So when I finally gave Bone a chance and read it, I kind of chuckled because I was sitting there going, Phone Bone. That's Don Martin would give all his characters, you know, really strange last names, and Phone Bone was one of them. So when Bone came out, and there's a character named Phone Bone in here, I was just wondering, you know, I was like, you know, give me a little chuckle. Next time I see Jeff Smith at a Heroes Con or something, I'm gonna go like, come on, man, just tell me, were you a Don Martin fan? But you know, Don Martin comes strong. I mean, he just deals with really dark humor that is still funny, gross stuff. Like you know, one of the ones I remember is, you know, this lady and this man are sitting in the living room in their lounge chairs, or you know, in their spot, and he's holding a beer can, maybe a Coke can, and the lady is sitting there with you know clipping her toenails, and one pops over, goes in the guy's can, another one goes over, goes in the can, and by the time she gets to the fifth one, she finally misses, and he's like, "That's disgusting." And you find out that there's a toenail competition that she's actually training for, and where she didn't get 5 out of 5, he's pissed. I mean, he's just out there. Yeah, Mad's maddest artist Don Martin drops 13 stories. You know, and there was suicide in these, man. There'd be people hanging themselves or taking a gun, and it was just hilarious. But here's my favorite Don Martin collection, Captain Klutz, man. Basically, just a guy that sat around and read comics all the time and got kicked out and ended up homeless. And when he ended up homeless, all he had was the underwear, his long underwear, and his boxers on. A series of events made him, you know, get this lady's hat wrapped over his head. That's not a mask, that's a lady's hat. And he just happened to come around on crime. And it's just, I mean, it felt like depression era stuff or something, you know. It was just some of the stuff, you know, you talk out loud and you're like, my God, that's dark. But yeah, but he ended up working for Cracked, and I've got the magazine. He in the early '90s, he finally came out with his own magazine, you know, and I don't know how I had the first one, and I think I might have seen one or two after that. Okay. Moving on, and of course, you know, Mad magazine in general. Sergio Aragonis is a big one. So, you know, over the years, you know, I'll pick up some Mad collections, and I'll pick up an old Mad magazine. And I'm telling you right now, the '70s Mad is so good. It was more adult oriented. It dealt with social issues a lot better through humor and statements and just showing you things. And they've dumbed it down to where it's for kids and stuff. But the magazine's survived like, what, 60 years, over 60 years now, you know? And it's kind of went back to its roots. That started out as an EC publication due to all the horror comics being banned by the Comic Code Authority and stuff, and they really hit big doing the superhero parodies in it. So there you go. You know, What else? What else? What else? Moving along. Oh, and I love Free Comic Book Day going back to Peanuts because it just kind of shows that even the genius that Charles Schultz is, there was some stuff that just wasn't worth printing that was just bad. I mean, there's some stuff in this Unseen Peanuts where I was just like, oh my God, it made me feel better. You know what I mean? Like, just like, oh, okay, so we all are unfallible. Another one that got me, and this was more of the Saturday morning cartoon that came on for a while that made me go back and reread this stuff because I would see it and kind of chuckle every now and then, but it wasn't a favorite. It was Grimm and oh my God, Grimm. Oh my, Mother Goose and Grimm. That's it. And it's about a dog and the goose and stuff, and they take you know fairy tale characters and put them in really odd and funny situations, and it was genius. Now that I'm older and I can appreciate this much more, it is so funny. Like takes the Tin Man and he can't get through the airport, because of the metal detector. He's taking off pieces of them, and there's nothing in there. Just some of these were kind of dark. It was just great. Gerbil restrooms. You can't go to the men or ladies' room because you don't know which is which. It's great stuff there. And then of course there is the standard of the '80s, in my opinion, one of the staples of the '80s cartoons, strips, because it attacked. I'm not really into politics and political cartoons and stuff. To me, it's like pointless arguments. I mean, it's kind of a pick your battle thing. But Berkeley Breathed, what he did with Bloom County and Opus and that whole cast of characters, it was a subtle, and then sometimes not so subtle, attack on all kinds of political issues and government issues and stuff, and it's just genius. I did not get into these until I read the collections once again. I would look at Outland, and it turned into Outland later, and then Outland ended up turning right back to Bloom County, no matter what you want to say. But Berkeley Breathe just created this whole world of characters and introduced handicapped characters and a penguin. It evolved and his nose got bigger and attacked being single and relationships and stuff. And I mean, it was just really cutting edge, and you didn't know it was cutting edge. And then he would just be blunt and so simple. My favorite one that I'll look around. And one of my friends had a collections of these. I think he had the entire run of Bloom County in his room, and I looked up because I was hanging out, spending the night or something. We'd been out. That's all I'm saying. And we ended up back at his place, and we were just wiped out. And I was like, what's this? And I ended up just like reading them all night while he slept and stuff. But my favorite one is that there's like a cockroach looking up at Opus, our penguin there, and they're saying like we are superior to you and evolution wise, and we can survive nuclear war, and you're going to die. And we're going to take over the world. And Opus just reaches over there and he stomps on him, and then he walks away. And I'm just kind of like, that's actually my philosophy on life, not shaped by that cartoon, but when I saw that cartoon, I'm like, that's me in a nutshell. So nobody's indestructible. Everything changes. And he just we're going to Outland here. Outland got really weird, and he just slowly started introducing them. So I love Berkeley Breed, and I've got more stuff. Did I grab it? Anyway, I have some. Yeah, here we go. I have it on VHS. I bought the book that he did of this. This was a TV special from CBS, A Wish for Wings That Would Work. I had the book that it was based on out in the car, but it's ice out there, and I'm not going out there to get it. Found it for 50 cents at Goodwill. I was so happy. All of those was just wonderful. And then we get to another one that I didn't appreciate till I had a son. My son is 17 this year, and he had this thing when he was a kid. I can't believe I'm going to talk about my ex-wife, but my son was a good, smart kid. I'm not saying that because he was my kid, but there was something. I mean, he was smart and polite and religious. He got himself baptized when he was 6. He went to Bible school, and we got a call from the preacher, whatever you want to call him, and saying that my son was asking questions he couldn't answer. He had manipulated the situation where he could get the preacher cornered in a hallway while the kids played in there, and he ended up getting himself baptized. He took it very serious and stuff. So my kid has a calling and very smart, and everything like that. But when it came to water and his mother, all bets were off. All bets were off. I would be at the bottom of our driveway. Our house at the time, I had a real nice house, two cars, it was normal and all this stuff. Had a room for all my stuff. But we'd be washing cars one day, and I would go down our little driveway down the hill and check the mail, and I would turn around, and my son, who was probably 3 at the time, had gotten hold of the water hose. And I look up, and there's my wife going, "Don't you do it. Don't you do it." And I knew it was coming because he had that look in his eye. And bam, there it goes. He was so little he would get the recoil from it and just splash her with his hands coming up. When it came to bathtub time, I gave him the bath, but I was the one that I did a lot with him. I was the one that got in there and did the bath with him and everything like that. But when he got his mom in there, if his mom ended up helping out, if I asked her to, can you not do it one night or something, get her to spend time with him and stuff, it would be a disaster because he would get her. I don't know if he cannonballed in there and stuff. So after reading Calvin and Hobbes and the strips and all that stuff and chuckling, there are a few of these Calvin and Hobbes magazines with Calvin's bathtub time. My son was blonde. We kind of called him Spike as a joke. He actually looked like Calvin as he was little. When I was little and my son was little, we had platinum blonde hair and all that stuff. But I read one of the strips. I wonder if I marked it. I read one of the strips where this was written in the 80s, yet here's my son doing it in 2001, but it was a bath time special where he ended up, soaking his mom, and it just happened in there. So I ended up getting Calvin and Hobbes because that was my son. When we divorced, I ended up getting him a little. It was amazing. He picked out a little stuffed animal for comfort at my new apartment and stuff. That was a little tiger, and I was just like, this is not happening. But anyway, of course, Hobbes was his imaginary friend who was a toy tiger, and Calvin was Sam. And there's a collected edition of this I would love to get one day, but at $150, it's just not happening. I'd rather just get them like this. So, Calvin and Hobbes. I absolutely love Calvin and Hobbes, a whole new thing. But then there's the one that just spoke to me. It was so different. And I like the idea that the art, and this is a compliment, that the artist seemed to come off like he had very little artistic talent, but he honed and crafted what he could do. He drew to his strength. He did one panel cartoons, strips. It came from Farside, Gary Larson and Farside. Oh my God, these little collections are so funny. The newspapers, I would go around, and I lived at an apartment complex when I found it. I think we started getting Farside around 85 or 86. I'm remembering where I lived at the time. And I had a grandmother in town on my mom's side, and I would go down there and cut out, tried to collect and cut out the comic strips. Now, I did that with the Sunday Funnies, but it was just too much, and they would yellow, and I didn't really have anything to put them in. And so, but the Far Side, I think I got up to cutting out 80 of them before I just kind of gave up. And, I'd be sitting there in my room just going through them, chuckling. Some I would have to rip even if I didn't have scissors. The prehistory of Far Side, great stuff. And it always blew my mind because, like, Bill Watterson, who did Calvin and Hobbes, kept it pure. He wouldn't let it become a franchise. He wouldn't let him do cartoons. He would let him make toys and stuff like that. So I always kind of wondered why Gary Larson ended Farside. I guess he was just burnt out, wanted to do different things. And I love these collections. I keep them, even though I got the complete Dark Farside I'll show you here in a minute, because he has paintings and little strips in them that you cannot find anywhere else. And you can just look at his stuff, and it's just amazing. Farside Gallery. And before I show you this, but after he quit Farside, he came out with the greatest children's book in my mind. I know it's dark and everything like that, but there's a hair in my dirt. All about how this worm is sitting with his family, and he really won't eat the dirt because there's a hair in it. And you come to find out they tell the story of this girl who's going through a little walk in nature, and everything that she thinks is romantic. Gary Larson gives you the biological and evolutionary reason all these animals and things act the way they do, and how we're part of the circle of life. How it's done in dark side fashion, but like she's loving how the birds are singing and all the pretty noises, when in reality that is marking territory and threatening each other and stuff. It's all about territory and reproduction and stuff. And how she tries to save a rat from a snake because it's the right thing to do. You know, we shouldn't let animals hurt each other and stuff. And it's the circle of life, man. Where that snake, where she saved the mouse from the snake, she ended up getting the bubonic plague or something and died. And she's died right on top of where the worms live, and it's her hair in the dirt. That's how it ends, you know. And I'm kind of like, the reality, yeah, you know, all this fantasy and romanticism that we've done has its place, but you know, it's gone too far. Um, and this was actually the greatest gift that my ex-wife got. We were at a Sam's Club, and they had this thing on sale, and she knew I wanted it, and I still can't believe she bought it for me. I have the complete Far Side, but like I said, I keep my trays and stuff because there's just paintings and stuff in there that he didn't do. And this sucker is heavy. I can work out with it and stuff. But yeah, I have the complete Far Side, and I have read this thing 20, 30 times all the way. I actually have to put it down if I want to draw and stuff because he gets in my head and yeah, oh, it's so good. All right. So there you go. That's just, you know, a little comic strip video there I felt like making. And, you know, so carry on. Keep your sleeves rolled up. All right. And party on.